Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever shorty, and apologies for the delay in reviews this week. A lot of stuff I wanted to review has been selling out really quickly, so I've kind of cheated and I've gone through an old friend of mine's pull list and I've pulled out American Psycho because it is at least an issue one that I wanted to read and review, and he won't mind. I've known him for years. I have read and seen the first two iterations of this story. The British novelist novel is absolutely fantastic, and the movie is also brilliant in different ways. There's something that they play off each other really effectively because it is a story of obsession, psychopathy, and delusion, and those things come across in various different ways. Sometimes fantastically, sometimes through banality, and it's all done really, really well. In the original book, the very long discussion on Huey Lewis in the News is absolutely fantastic to get into the level of obsession and the competitive nature and the capitalist yuppie culture in the movie when they're comparing the very expensive business cards, which effectively means a whole bunch of very rich people laying down identical business cards and claiming they're better, very emperor's new clothes. It's brilliant. I mean, I love everything about the book and I love everything about the movie. Performance, writing, setting, everything is fantastic. So, when I knew they were doing comic book cards, are they just going to do an adaptation, or are they going to take advantage of the time periods to do something a bit different with it? And they are. They're introducing brand new characters, and they're jumping around a little bit in time period, but it's the same kind of setting. And it does look like it's got a lot of promise. It actually looks really nice. It is not the most intricate, detailed, luscious artwork ever. It is very effective in using darkness and shadow, though. It goes heavy on the inking, really, really leans into the darkness and the shadows all the time. But it works very, very effectively. It also doesn't bog you down with detail. It lets the style take over when it needs to, but it doesn't overplay its hand too much in that regard either. Because at its heart, this is a character study, in the same way the original stories were. They were about that guy. They were about his life and what he did. And sometimes when we see things happening in this comic book, it's not really that it's important that we're seeing them, it's what it tells us about the person watching them. And that's a nice little take. It means that no matter how sensational and gory and violent and explicitly sexual it gets, we know we're seeing it from the point of view of somebody who is impressed by only certain aspects of that, however lurid it might be. Its gaze is centered on the character. That kind of means you can get away with stuff which in other situations might be a bit like, oh, it's a bit male gazy, and yes, the character is male, but it's not about that for him. And I think it really does matter that we set that up straight away. In terms of writing, I think it is let down ever so slightly by comparison. I like the concept, I like the setting, I like the fact that we're jumping around a little bit with time periods. I like the fact that there are nods to the obsessive nature of the Christian Bale character, whose name I'm blanking off the top of my head at the moment. The fact that he is very much into his music and so supremely confident and absolutely dominating. And there's a bit later on where we jump forward to like a 2011, and that kind of personality doesn't work quite so well. But in the yuppie age, that kind of like power is everything, money is everything kind of vibe, it comes across really effectively. I think, though, it lacks a certain panache to the writing. I mean, Bret Easton Ellis did such a fine job. I mean, there's a reason why this book stands out, and in today's world is still a good seller. Bookshops, I mean, every bookshop I go into, like a Waterstones or Different, would have a copy of it on the shelf, and they'll probably always have it in order the moment it sells out. There's a reason for that. He is an absolutely amazing writer. He can add life to the banality of an obsessive personality. He can describe in lurid detail things which shouldn't be as exciting as they are. And then when we do get to actual proper deviance and sexuality stuff that's going on the page and violence and brutality, he writes it in such a way that it works with how everything else is being described. Unfortunately, when you take that style and that skill and level of accomplishment when it comes to writing, unfortunately, it's very hard to master it when you're not that as good. And I don't mean this to be like absolutely dumping on the guy who's written this comic book. I actually really enjoyed it. It only fails through comparison. And I think that is always going to be a risk when you're taking another IP and doing something with it. I'd like to actually see if Brady Sellers has any thoughts on this and what he's thinking on it, but I do think if you have never read or watched the movie even, you can pick this up and find something entertaining about it. It is a well-told story of psychopathy and obsession, delusion, all the things I really like about the original story, and it works quite nicely. The fact that it jumps around with a time flip is fantastic. It gives a chance to actually show off different character types, archetypes, and a different take on the violence that happens in these stories. But if you've read the book, you're probably more likely to pick this up, because I think you'd be like, oh yeah, I know what's going on here, I'm going to give it a try. But you're also slightly more likely to just be a little bit down by it. And that's a shame. It is, because I think of all the kind of tie-in and IP shifts I've seen going from other media to comic books, this is a pretty strong one. But when you go against such fantastic source material, it is hard to shine under your own light. But I still enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. That's it for me for today. I'll be back next week now. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!